All right, guys, welcome back to Always Moving Forward. We've had another great week. We just got to launching our interview with another great actor, Michael Ochotorina. So if you haven't seen that episode yet, go ahead and check that out. Now, for those who know me, know that my favorite types of movies are the time period movies, especially like during the Roman times. So shows like The Tudors and the Vikings and Game of Thrones and Rome. I love those types of shows. So I'm really excited about my next guest. So my next guest, his name is Mishael Lopes Cardozo. And I'm going to bring Mishael in. How's it going, brother?
It's going well. Thank you for having me on the show.
I got it right?
Say it again?
So I didn't butcher your name. I got it right?
You got it right.
All right, cool.
Well, actually, there's supposed to be two dots still on the E, but you're forgiven.
Well, cool, man. Well, welcome to the show, brother.
Yeah, well, glad to be here. So, Very nice.
So, I'm friends with Miso on Facebook, and I saw some of the things that he was doing. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of like Vikings and Game of Thrones, and I invited him to come on to the show, and I want you guys kind of get to know him and what he's doing. This guy's an incredible actor, and he's from Holland, so he's we're doing this interview all the way out in Holland. So I want to have him share his journey.
And I'm an historical fencer. That's still my core business.
Right. So, which makes you such a unique person.
Say that again?
So that's what makes you such a unique person.
Well, yeah, historical fencing is my, I guess one of my third big love. Right. And my acting was actually the last big love. And before that, it was always art and music.
Right, and we're going to get into that too. So let's start where you were born and raised, and let's talk about what life was like for you growing up.
Oof, yeah. Well, I grew up in a very small, it's basically almost a small village in Holland, where most of the actually now all the famous people in Holland actually live, because it's kind of remote and they all got these big villas there. But I was born there, and I moved out very fast to a way poorer neighborhood. And so my parents basically moved already when I was very small. I think I was like 4 or 5. So in the end, we moved to another sort of a small town, and with a lot of grass and small hills, because Holland is pretty flat. Right. And from there, I had a reasonably peaceful childhood up till, let's say, I was 8, 9, and then my parents kind of divorced, and it became slightly more problematic at home due to circumstances. And and basically from there, I was doing already when I was 8, like Eastern martial arts. Started with karate and stuff, and also just to focus on other things and just stay away basically from, and being in school, of course, staying away from the home situation that was becoming increasingly more toxic. Right. And from one thing led to another. So I did a lot of stuff. So I also don't know exactly where I should begin.
What was it that drew you to karate and martial arts at such an early age?
Well, I guess I was most of it was I was pushed kind of by my dad, because I tried a lot of different sports and stuff, and I could never really find my thing. Right. And I had it with a lot of stuff that people normally, even with music, I had problems sometimes, finding, what is it exactly that I'm looking for. And in the end, it became medieval Gregorian chant. I never heard of it, but somehow subconsciously, maybe, I don't know, from a past life, I knew what I was looking for. But you know, and also with the martial arts, I was always interested in sort of the combat arts, you know, and also for gaining a little bit more self-confidence and stuff. You know, when you're young, yeah, you're dealing with all the standard issues, and I had classes and stuff, you know, and I got picked on in class when I was younger, and sometimes bullied. So in the end, I said, okay, you know, you see all the stuff on TV, and
Right.
you know, and then you think, okay, maybe I have to be more equipped with and more proficient with my arms and legs. So then I ended up, and also my father kind of pushed me and said it was maybe a good idea, so I did it. And and from there on, I just gradually moved to a lot of different Asian arts, but never really found my thing until I did jiu-jitsu. I
Right.
did that for a really long time, and also pretty high level. And but then I had some accidents, and I broke my nose a couple of times, pretty severe, that had to kind of operate it and fixed.
Wow.
And then I don't know, there was a lot of stuff with study and going on, and then I didn't go back, and I had a kind of a black, or like say a small period in between.
Right.
And there was this moment where I was interested in, you know, I was just interested in trying to figure out if we had any content basically on our own martial heritage from medieval times. And then that basically paid off, because then I found a couple of guys that were basically already in the United States, actually busy transcribing historical manuscripts and stuff like that. And so I kind of jumped that bandwagon, and because there was nothing in Holland, I kind of started my journey there. And then I sort of became sort of the founder of historical martial arts in Holland. And now we got a big thriving kind of community that that does pretty good.
Cool. And I know you teach sword fighting out there as well, don't you?
Yeah, I got 4 clubs throughout Holland. I had 7 clubs, but I kind of slowed down a little bit, and but I got still in the main cities. I got my 4 clubs. So I got one in Amsterdam, I got one in Haarlem, in Utrecht, and The Hague, that most people also know.
Cool. So how did they kind of morph? So you started off in martial arts as a kid. And
well, martial arts literally means the arts of Mars. So it means actually, and Mars was the Roman god of war. So actually, terminology martial arts actually refers to our Western martial culture, and actually not to an Asian martial culture. Funny fact.
Wow. Okay. So so you went from martial arts. Now you didn't go into acting right away. You had a different career path that you wanted to go through.
Oh, the acting part, man, that came way later. I could either go to that's what I wanted to go to art school, or to conservatorium, because I was always a jazz musician, and I played drums and guitar, mainly was drums, and so I did audition and stuff, and in the end I was I got on board of the art school. So, and then I jumped ship, and to another how do you call that? Yeah, it's basically the Royal Academy in The Hague. It's a pretty big deal, basically internationally seen also. So it's like, and I went there, but then I got kicked out in the end, because I was painting, stuff that apparently, you know, there was like this curriculum, and these teachers were pushing everybody in a certain direction. And I just really wanted to do my own thing, and I felt that I couldn't. And in the end, I bailed out. So so I did a couple of years, but never got my diploma. But I had my own atelier, so my own studio where I was painting and selling paintings and stuff like that. So that went well. And in the meantime, I also made music. So that was my basically my income. I played always freelance, but I did a lot of stuff. I played basically from yeah, from jazz to metal. Yeah, I did all of it. Yeah. But it was not like that I specifically did audition because I was just freelance. So I
Okay.
didn't have my own band or anything, and mostly I was just playing jazz gigs. And in the end, I had a guitar duo with a friend of mine, and yeah, we play basically in restaurants and jazz festivals and stuff. So.
Okay.
So these were like rumbas, kind of jazz, Latin
Yeah.
American stuff, and combined basically, yeah, with jazz, so Spanish and jazz. And yeah, Paco de Lucia, Aldi Meola, John McLaughlin. I mean, it was pretty, yeah. It was fun, and it was also pretty high level skill stuff that we did. And
Right.
so it was, and so we could actually, yeah, also make some money with it. But we were still young, so it was cool
Right.
to just live off gigs. That was fun.
Right. Okay. So now, when you so you started off with the doing the martial arts. So when did you start bringing in kind of the sword fighting?
Well, the sword was always sort of, yeah, sort of was sort of yeah, like everybody, I think if I look around and see people and ask them what was the moment that they got interested in swords, I think 99% will say it was with the movie Highlander when that came out when we were young.
Right. Right.
I mean, that made an impact on a lot of people, I think, especially in that young age.
Right.
And because that was like, about immortality and about mindset and about, and about the will,
Right.
and good versus evil. And yeah, that was the concept was really good. And back then it was pretty high tech sword fighting actually in a movie, which is now you can't watch it anymore. It's terrible, but
Right.
back then it was state of the art, which is
Right.
already seems to be like a century ago. So, and then yeah, of course, with all the other movies, the whole thing that moved from the 60s from Japan over to here, everything, yeah, that became exotic, samurais and ninjas. So the katana, yeah, I mean, we're all been indoctrinated with the katana. If you say
Right.
katana, there's a cloud coming from the skies and lightning, and there's this katana, it's like the ultimate weapon of the medieval era, and that is so conditioned,
Right.
in most of people's brain. And then when people think about medieval longsword, they go like, okay, heavy stuff, and
Right.
like difficult to wield, and yeah, even if people think about Japanese martial arts, they think of samurais, ninjas,
Right.
and like they can do all these fancy moves. And
Right.
then yeah, if they very with a lot of dexterity and a lot of technique, and when they think of medieval historical fencing or sword fighting, yeah, they think of clumsy knights in heavy armor
Right.
dragging their ass over the battlefield, and the guy with the biggest muscle is the one who wins in the end. But historically seen, that is utter BS and is not correct.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so that is so the movie, I guess, yeah, Hollywood probably had a big say in it. And then
Right.
it took a long time before I sort of, when I started historical martial arts, because I found the content of these manuscripts and realized, okay, we have something really, really interesting there. Because from the jiu-jitsu, there was a lot of ringen in the old German, which is wrestling, and a lot of locks and levers and interesting throws that I have never seen before. The dagger work was amazing, almost like medieval special ops kind of dagger work,
Wow.
and with interesting biomechanics. And then I started thinking, okay, I have to skip with all this Asian stuff, and I have to devote myself to what my ancestors left me, because nobody was practicing it, and it's like a dead art.
Right.
So, and if nobody's speaking Latin, for instance, then somebody has to start go and open up a manuscript and start learning Latin,
Yeah.
and yeah, teach that again to others. And that's what I then determined to start doing.
Right. And, you brought up a good point too with the knights in the armor and wielding the sword. I've watched some videos of you in how agile you have to be with the sword. So I can imagine, somebody wearing all that armor, it would be very difficult to, to really get into a big sword fight because that armor is heavy.
Well, actually, if you have armor on, well, let's talk about a couple of misconceptions that people have concerning historical martial arts. And with historical, I refer to European historical martial arts.
Right.
So armor is one of them. So where the armor is problematic is is exactly there where nobody would expect it, and where people expect it to be problematic, it is not problematic at all. So it basically boils down to that armor doesn't weigh a lot. It's actually very, very light. Okay. And yeah, it's around 25 kilos, but it's strapped around every part of your body. Right. So it's also custom made. So if you do want to do a salto backwards or jump on your horse, it's very easy. You have maybe like 2% movement reduction if you even reach that, because you actually have no reduction. If you fight, that's funny, if you for the first time fight in armor, right, then your brain will tell you. So I mean, we did many tests with that, and then your brain will tell you that you are somehow restricted. So you start moving restricted while you in fact are not restricted. Right. So that is very interesting. Because I write, for instance, I'm also busy with a fantasy game, like a role-playing game that I designed with military buddies of mine and real sword fighters. And then one of the skills in it, which is no other RPG, is actually fight in armor. So you have to learn how to fight in armor. But basically what it is, it's not a physical problem. It's more like a mental thing that you think you cannot move. And people start moving sometimes in the beginning for the first time like robots. Once they realize, no, there's actually no movement restriction. You're just as fast as normal. Oh, wow. But the real issue with armor is no sensitivity to your outside world. That is the problem, because you normally, when you fight, and even when you wrestle or you have any contact, it all depends on pressure on your skin. It's the biggest organ. So when you feel pressure, on your underarm, where it is. So yeah, you feel pressure somewhere, you want to grab a wrist or you do an arm lock or something. But if you wear armor, you don't feel that. Right. So it's like an outer skeleton, and you're like an ant. So, and that is very annoying, especially when you're fighting other people in armor, and let's say wrestling. It's also what you see, with nowadays when people are bashing each other in full armor. Right. And you have now these the international tournaments where they just try to tip people over. Then, first of all, they have very, very, very heavy armor. They look and also really, really big guys, and a lot of them, sort of, no offense to these people, but some of them are just huge, in all directions. And if you look at, fluted armor from medieval times, and also basically plates, knights wearing armor, they're very thin and agile, and knights in medieval times, at least as they're portrayed, they're not really, they might be tall, but they're not big. Right. They look very agile, and if you have nice 15th century fluted armor, and it's really custom built for you, I mean, yeah, you move like an elf. But the problem remains that the pressure is difficult. So when you're fighting somebody else in armor, and the armor kind of moves and touches each other, it's almost impossible to feel where somebody is. Or let's say you want to make a leg sweep or a throw or grab him somewhere. That is the biggest problem, actually. Movement, not.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. I mean, watching these types of movies, they make it to appear like the armor is extremely heavy and it's hard to maneuver. But you're saying that's not the case at all.
No, that is correct. And it's just like swords, people have, and of course you guys do kilos?
Do it.
Kilos or pounds? You guys?
We go by pounds.
All right, so that's like twice, I guess, because a medieval sword, in medieval times, and it's not, I had a lot of originals in my hand, and
Right.
I go to these auctions, and then I get these white gloves, and then I talk to these guys, and then when everybody's gone, I start swinging these blades around, and they're like 500-600 years old swords, and they're
Wow.
pretty good condition, mint condition, some of them. And then, there's a couple of things noticeably different than, for instance, the modern wall hangers that you can buy.
Right.
The ones, when you are a Lord of the Ring fan, you want to have a Lord of the Ring sword or whatever, and these things, they are heavy, made of 440 carbon steel. But medieval swords, they, first of all, what is they weigh nothing. They weigh around 1 kilogram. Now, what is that like? Is that 2 pounds? I don't know.
That's not heavy at all.
It's basically like a big package of sugar. You have a package of sugar.
Right.
That is how much a sword weighs, distributed over the full length. And I mean, we do meters, so maybe I should have figured out up front exactly the pounds and stuff. But I don't know. But anyway, a long sword is about 1 meter 25. So what is that? Basically a little bit less than 4 feet.
Right.
So and that weighs as much as a package of sugar. And some swords, because the balance is so tilted backwards, it's like on the cross guard, they have a very fast, how do you call that? Well, I don't know what the English word is, but you can go very fast back to the center. So fast movement. So it kind of pivots on the back, and very nice balance, basically.
Right.
And then the sword has a certain flow, and it has a certain mass, and the mass is just how much it weighs, but that is completely irrelevant. And then you can see where the balance is. You can do this, for instance, by grabbing the pommel and moving it from side to side, and then the point has to stay static when you do that. So then, for instance, you have a good sword, and also the balance has to be backward, but then it's becomes even faster. So then biomechanically, they had very light equipment in medieval times. So, and very flexible. So if you have a long sword and you just keep it horizontal, you see it arcing. So it arcs almost half a centimeter up to a centimeter over 3 feet.
Oh, wow.
So like really, really flexible. So when you flap it, it is just like, like a floppy dick, it's like, it's crazy. So, and they used those flexible blades because you are having you have more feeling in the sword when you make contact with the other sword. And I never understood that from theory. So, but I had a lot of flexible swords then made, and and that's what I did also all my demonstrations and shows with, because you are just like at least twice as fast. Because also when you make one strike to the other, somehow because of the flexible blade, it has less, it's less rigid, but because of that it goes faster around the corner, which also still doesn't make any sense. But by physics was never my big thing. But the reality, there's a reason why they did it, and indeed it works way more efficient and faster. So very flexible and very light, and way more flexible than Japanese katanas, and also in a sense lighter than Japanese katanas, because Japanese katanas were smaller.
Right.
So around also 3 feet, sometimes a little bit less, the blade. But you had the big fat back, of course, of metal that you use to put it back into your saya. And it's not sharp. So for your buck, you have with a long sword more length, and the recover point's more backwards, but the katana is more up in the front. But what is most important is another advantage, for instance, a cross guard, that you have a long cross guard, instead of a small tuba around it. And the biggest thing is, of course, that you have 2 edges on a long sword. So that is the thing that was for me as an Asian martial artist or Eastern martial artist, and especially I did Katori Shinto Ryu, Aikijitsu, a lot of these sword sports or sword arts, and
Right.
Aikidos of Aikijitsu, so like Iaido kind of stuff. And what is the interesting part is that you have with a katana only 9 strikes. And that is because the last vertical upwards you can do from both sides. So then you have 9. But with a European longsword, you have 28 different biomechanical strikes.
Wow.
And it's not even twice as much. It is more, because twice 9 would be 18, but there's 28. Wow. And that is the crazy part, because the back edge, what we call the false edge, is basically, or the short edge can be sort of inverted, but can also be exverted. So you end up with a lot of so it's a very economic weapon. And it's not just my opinion, but from a biomechanical and metallurgical perspective, it is the ultimate weapon that medieval times has ever seen.
Wow.
And
so let me ask you
unfortunately this. For my friends that do with still Japanese martial arts, and really, the katana is the ultimate, then of course, they're gonna go like, what the hell is the guy saying?
Right.
But guys, I've been there, and I'm just being totally honest. It's nothing to do with taste, and it's nothing to do with the preference. Right. I had almost 15 years that I keep preferring the katana was the ultimate weapon, but had to slowly discover that it was not. And that is purely based on the techniques that survived, the biomechanics of the weapon, because techniques has nothing to do with the weapon, but that is an add-on when you put it into the martial context. Then it becomes also a way more efficient weapon. But it can do a lot more stuff than a katana. And it's logic, because if you have a single-edged weapon, it's like having a car, It's like you have 4 gears. I know you guys normally have the automatics, but we all drive stick. But you have like having 4 gears, and or 5 or 6 and a reverse, So on the highway it doesn't matter so much, but when you want to do the fine stuff, then it's handy to have a reverse, and that is that extra edge, and that's how you come up also with the 28 strikes. So so that is fascinating.
Cool. So
just keep on laughing. I want to have you cut in, otherwise I feel like I'm talking nonstop. Because
you're good.
I can just keep yapping.
I have a question for you though. So, of all the swords that you've ever, that you've been able to see, have you ever been able to forge your own sword?
Or forge?
Yeah, forge your own sword, like make.
Oh, forge.
Yeah.
No, I never did that, but I also have to admit that somehow I don't have the desire to do that. Okay. So, and I don't know why that is, because I know a lot of blacksmiths, and I also been invited many times.
Right.
But it has probably to do with the fact that if I go there, that I will not be forging my own sword. I will be probably learning how to hold a hammer and try to hit anything, so that whole process of having 2 left hands and not being acquainted with that kind of a skill, to forging a sword, I know how far that is. I mean, it's like same with guitar, you can't play guitar, but let's say you want to have the level of somebody who studied at a conservatorium, and somebody says, hey, you would like to play guitar on that specific level, and you say, okay, let's grab a guitar, but then what? You have to put in so many hours. So it is basically impossible, and I could do an attempt to forge anything, but I have to also be realistic, because that is a powerful skill. That is a very specific skill. So maybe I would want to, but I'm not even gonna try, because it's just, then I either do something and then I have to put the hours in, and then I want to be good at it, or I just gonna leave it to the professionals.
You think that if you did that, you would want it, that you'd spend so much time trying to perfect it, if you ever did try to forge one.
Yeah, but that is with everything that I do. I
Right.
try to be, the whole thing is when I was younger, and this is maybe also for the younger viewers. When I was younger, I had basically two kinds of advices, and I had one advice from my dad when I was young, and he
Right.
said it doesn't matter what you do, you know, as long as you become the best in it. That's what he
Right.
said. But and then and he said even if you have to sweep the streets, you better become the best street sweeper, you know.
Right.
And I never could, I didn't feel it, because it's also like a huge pressure or something, because then you have to first of all stick to one thing and then become the best at it. And I mean, how are you going to get the best at it? I mean, that's quite a lot of pressure, and
Right.
you have to be realistic, because only one person can be the best in something. And then my drum teacher back then he said, well, you have many talents, so what you need to do is, that's an advantage and a curse. He says you just have to keep practicing all of them as best as you can, and you probably will not become the best at all of them,
Right.
but you at least will never be bored.
Right.
And that was useful.
Right.
So yeah, if you have multiple skills, I say also to younger people when I coach, like, you know, they get forced to do one thing, forced by parents, you do this and you have to be good at, focus on one thing. And yeah, I say, when it comes to these kind of skills, no, just focus. If you can manage it, focus on everything, but yeah, do the things that you love, because yeah, kids, if they have to focus on stuff they don't love, and you have three things you want to focus on that you actually don't care about, then it's going to be hard. But if you have stuff that you actually like
Right.
doing, then it's not a chore, and then it's also just fun to do. And as a kid, I already at a young age that I just wanted to acquire as many skill sets as I could,
Right.
I view basically life already like a computer game, but you can just not respawn. Or if there's something like reincarnation, maybe we can, I don't know. But
Right.
the thing is, you have one life. So yeah, and I start just marking down all my skill sets, for instance, and I devoted my life to, for instance, guitar.
Well.
I never had a lesson in my life, and I had people that went to conservatorium, and my friends still from back then, they play in pretty famous bands this year in Holland, and they make good money, and they were like, virtuosos, so
Right.
no use. I was a drummer, and then my girl of my sister, sorry, it was, by the way, my sister, she left a guitar at my place. And I just thought, okay, should I touch that thing or not? Because I knew if I start touching that guitar, then
Right.
I need to go all the way. But then I had professional guitarists as my friends, and I knew the level, and I knew,
Right.
okay, that's gonna take me, maybe if I study hard, maybe 10 years, maybe 7,
Oh,
8 years, 10 years to get to their level. But then I grabbed the guitar, and then I just said, okay, I'm yeah, I just studied, put it in my agenda, work and all these things. But I made sure that I studied still up
right.
till the night, like 8 hours a day, sometimes 10 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
And in 2.5 years, I could play pretty decent, jazz, flamenco, and rumbas, and yeah, I basically covered a lot of range. And then from there on, of course, yeah, you just keep getting better. But I was already way ahead of other people. But yeah, then you commit, and then you do, okay, I need to study this thing for 10 hours a day. I have no idea how I'm gonna get the time, how I'm gonna do it, but I need to get at least 8 hours in, and then maximum 10, and
Oh,
then just do it. And then the guitar went everywhere, like everywhere. So I had a business appointment somewhere or whatever, guitar goes with me,
wow.
and I have to, got a 5-minute break. I play the guitar, like, so that's how I do actually all my skills that I try to gather. It's just like a game.
Right. Cool. So then, when you went from, so you started off in martial arts, you moved into music, and then with the swords, doing the sword fighting. What brought you into
The
acting?
music was from young age already. I played drums and the music it was young age, at least drums. So that was the first love, and then sort
Music.
of
Yeah.
art, and then indeed, yes, sorry, the martial arts was, like same as my music.
Right.
Yeah, just getting the
So,
time frame for myself in the order. Yeah. So long ago, man. I'm old.
so when did acting become a part of that? When did you start getting involved in acting?
No, I think we all got involved with acting as soon as we got pooped out of our mother's womb. I think that is basically what we do.
Right.
In every environment, you're always acting. And yeah, when you get older, especially you start realizing, yeah, at least if you're wise, that you're just a product of, a lot of elements in your life and environmental influences, and especially your parents. But
Right.
in the end, we're just a transparent vessel. I believe there's just one, like a soul, and our character developments and things like that. It's all, most of it is just choice, and most of it is inspiration from others or how you want to be, or so I think everybody in that sense is acting. So as a sidetrack, you have like young people that are criminals, but they want to be the bad guys from the Hollywood movies.
Right.
So they see people selling cocaine, so they're for cool guys. So I want to be like that. You have people that watch other stuff, young kids, they're inspired by good stuff, and
Right.
they start pursuing that. But in the end, it's all, yeah, I think we're all acting out, something. It's
Right.
and in your life you have to try to figure out who you really are. So I think I have been acting also all my life. And then I did, of course, a lot of sword fight shows and stuff, and for big audiences. And because that is how I actually started doing sword fight shows with a friend of mine called Kenneth Smolders. He's a legendary sword fighter, and we won a couple of times, like the stage combat, big world champion stage combat tournaments. And yeah, there I was already acting for big audiences, playing just the bad guy or the good guy, and we both were basically acting out like a play.
Right.
And that was, like a movie stage fight, basically.
Right.
So, and that's how I actually got into acting, because it was, I think, in 2004 or 2005 that I got approached by a director called Stefano Mille. So it's already a long time back, and he saw me fight there. And then I was with a Russian guy, an Hungarian guy. I don't remember where the other guy was from. But anyway, we were sort of invited because we're all chatting together,
Right.
and he congratulated me with the gold medal, and
Oh.
he said, "Well, I am a director, and I have a preview of my new film in the church here."
Mhm.
And so there was, and this was in Italy. So I said, "Okay, I will come, no problem."
Right.
So in the end, I was in that church, and I was watching his movie.
Mhm.
And suddenly we were sitting in a row with the Russian guy.
Right.
He started to snore like a mother peep, like really loud. And it's a church, so anything
Right.
there, it just echoes. And
Right.
they were on a big canvas showing a movie, but he was just, going way over the volume of the movie with his snoring.
Right.
And then I was like tapping him on the shoulder, dude, like it's kind of impolite. But yeah, he was only for maybe 20 seconds, and then he was snoring again. But then his Hungarian guy started snoring as well.
Oh.
And so in the end we were all in a row. And oh, by the way, the other guy's Kenny. I'm just thinking a guy abroad, but it was my friend. So two Dutch guys, yeah. And then the Russian guy and the Hungarian guy. So Kenny, he has a horrible snore, and also this thing with his nose that he kind of difficult breathe while sleeping. What is that
Right.
called in English? But anyway, when he snores, it's like, like a Boeing 747 is just basically crashing in your garden.
Right.
So, and I saw people getting annoyed by that. And then I also, in the end, woke up because of the clapping, because
Right.
we're so tired after fighting and doing all the stuff. And I realized I also fell asleep and I was also snoring. So we had 4 guys snoring, and we apparently completely screwed up the screening of that movie. And so immediately this director, he came walking up to me, and with this kind of annoyed, suppressed emotion,
Right.
saying, because he invited us and probably regretted it. And he said, did you like my movie?
Right.
And I just looked at him and I said, well, I'm Dutch. I said, you want to have a polite answer, or you want to have an honest answer?
Right.
And he says, I want to have an honest answer. I said, well, your movie sucked ass, man. And he said,
Wow.
what? I said, your movie sucked ass. And he said, really? And I said, really, man? It was boring as hell. And he said, okay, you think you can do better? I said, hell yeah. And he said, okay, you're gonna be on my next movie. So that is how it started.
Oh wow. Which movie was that you started in your first movie?
That was, I think, when I jumped on board was Richard the Lionheart, but that was a little bit later on. And I don't know if that was 2004, the tournament. I think it was later. I don't remember which year it was, but that was the first movie that I did.
Yeah, I watched that movie. It was pretty good too.
Yeah, it was the first time I was in front of a camera, but the whole idea was that I was gonna basically do the fight biography, and that's it. And then, yeah, he apparently observed me during that whole event there, and then in the end he said, would you be okay if you do a couple of lines, and speak a couple of lines from the script? And they already had a guy doing my role.
Right.
And I said, okay, I can do that. So he had a small camera, and I did a couple of lines. And he said, all right, so you're not going to do just the fight choreography, but you're going to be an actor in the movie too. And in the end, I ended up playing the bad guy, which is actually the good guy in the movie. So that's also weird, but because he's the right hand of the king, but he does all these. Yeah, he's a little bit of a dick. So yeah, but that was a nice role to play, and I was nervous as hell the first time. Wow.
Oh wow.
But yeah, no acting experience except then what I already did, and I used my my martial mindset basically for trying to keep my cool on the set, because I was not acquainted with that kind of energy, and also, in fact, I have a huge difficulties with having cameras straight in my face. I find that very uncomfortable and intimidating on one hand, and I like doing stuff that make me feel uncomfortable. So it's like adventure starts at the end of your comfort zone. So, and that is I don't know, maybe some sadomasochistic thing. Like I hated always horses. I fell off as a young kid, but then I'm thinking, okay, I need to get on a horse, and I need to get really skilled with a horse. So in the end, you start doing it and facing your fears, and I think also with the camera and acting, it's like art and music kind of comes together in one thing, and you have to really completely, immerse yourself into a character, and also forget about the cameras and stuff like that, and basically live truthfully under imaginary circumstances, which is requires also a specific kind of mindset. So but it's the most, I think, for me, the most challenging skill that I ever had to master, and I still suck at it, in my opinion.
I thought you did really well on it. When I saw Richard the Lionheart, I thought you did really well. I mean, you couldn't tell that you were nervous. I mean, I'm thinking about the opening, the first fight, the first sword fight scene that you did. Then you did another one towards the end. But yeah, I mean, I thought you did a great job with it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, well, God knows I was nervous, but in the end, it's also sort of suppressing your emotions in that sense. But also the problem is with any skill, you need tools, and if you don't have the tools, it's difficult. You can understand maybe sort of how a lock works, but if you don't have lockpick tools is difficult, but you first have to at least know. And I didn't have the tools, and I didn't understand the lock. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
and with everything, I kind of I ended up in projects that, for my feeling, were sort of almost way over my head. You know, with these big actors and stuff, and and these huge cameras, and basically,
Right.
it's like, but it's an adventure, and
Right.
I sort of kind of survived the whole ordeal, and then it became what it is now, and I'm still not there, but yeah, the thing though is with the acting, because I did that one movie, but somewhere in my back of my head there was already that I kind of had the feeling that I wanted to try that, because
Right.
I always kind of collapse when a camera was in my face. And I always have a big mouth, but as soon as the camera is on it, I suddenly shrivel up, and and I hated that. So that was one of the reasons I thought, okay, maybe that would be cool therapy, like do
Right.
movie for your self-confidence in front of the camera. But then it kind of subsided, and then there was this moment where I was doing a lot of lectures on mindset,
Right.
and visualization and all that stuff, and but from a very concrete kind of perspective,
Right.
because I'm a really down to earth guy, so not like like The Secret or whatever, like it's more like like very typical tools about mindset and quantum physics, and kind of combining my own thing, because I always have been able to kind of pull off what I set my mind to. And there's a trick to it, and I did a lot of lectures on it, and then my students basically told me, like, okay, Lopes, what you're telling us is just, we think it's complete utter bullshit,
Right.
and I said, why do you think it's bullshit? You don't think you can do anything in life you set your mind on? And they said, no, that's ridiculous, because if that would be the case, everybody would doing exactly what they love. But 95% of the people are having jobs they hate, and
Right.
so no. And I said, okay, so how do people that are actually successful in life, how did they get there, according to you? And I have a lot of young people also in my club,
Right.
and they said, well, it's just luck. And I said, okay, so then it's luck.
Right.
And then okay, then describe what is luck. And then it becomes a slippery slope.
Right.
And then I said, so okay, let's do it very practically. So and they basically said, yeah, you always say that you can visualize anything you want to be, but what are you still doing? Because you're teaching, but what are your dreams? And how could you prove to us that your bullshit talk is true then? Because you can't prove that to us unless you actually do something that is impossible to do.
Right.
And I said, okay, well, let's do it like that. You guys come up with something that you think that I cannot do, and then if it's for me worthwhile, to invest in, then I might I'll take you up on it. So and then a week later they came and said, okay, we want you to become an actor. And I was not doing anything with acting, and they said, okay, we want you to become an actor, but not like an extra in some Dutch TV series or something, but something really substantial.
Right.
And I said, why an actor? Yeah, because that is something that we feel that is impossible to do still, because you're too old, you don't have an agent, and I said, okay. I said, okay, I'm going to think about it. And then a week later, I came back and said, okay, I'm taking you on the deal, because I wanted to actually still in the back of my head act, but I had really sort of forgotten about it, because my stuff, my sword fight clubs, I did my lectures, I still had my music and my painting. So I said, okay, let's do it. And they said, okay, but you need a time frame. And I said, okay, in 2 years, I will be either in Game of Thrones or Vikings or Star Wars. And they said, well, that's bullshit. So you're never gonna manage that. But if you are able to manage that, then we know your bullshit talk is real.
Right.
And I said, it's okay. And I bet for $10. I told them, okay, let's bet for $10 for 150 students that I have. So that's 1,500 quid. I
Right.
said, okay, and if I lose, I just lose my my honor, basically.
Right.
So and then I lost the bet because it took me 2.5 years,
Uh,
but I scored 2 out of 3.
right. So
So
you were in Vikings and Game of Thrones out of the three, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean the Game of Thrones. I mean it was a small part, but
Right.
but everybody remembers the part, and it was with Peter Dinklage and Matt Ferris, and I mean they had a couple of studios, and it could have been any with anybody, but in the end I had a cool scene with the 2 lead actors. So that was for them also, like something, but especially, from a perspective of inspiring or motivating young people to just
Right.
think, okay, there is actually a way to do stuff, and in
Right.
these days, and now especially, I think, people feel really confined, and like it's almost impossible to reach your dreams or something.
Right.
But yeah, you can, but yeah, what do you need? Well, you need a proper mindset, and you can't buy that, at the grocery store. That's true.
Right.
So
I'm surprised that they got you to get into those 2 films off of a $10 bet.
yeah, well, yeah, they motivated me basically to start pursuing it, and then I did now the Chain, which is it's an American movie that's now coming out, where I play one of the lead roles, and I play a professor in 1800 and around 1800. So yeah, that's basically what I'm doing now.
Um, if you could do it your own, do a specific movie or play a specific character in a film, what would it be?
Well, I written actually a script for a story, but that's yeah, and that unfortunately has been nicked already by somebody. So there's a whole process now going,
Right.
but they changed a lot of stuff around. But that was sort of my baby. So yeah. Anyway, that's how the movie business works. You send it to a couple of people, and then people go like, "Yee!"
Right.
So yeah, but that's unfortunately no honor sometimes. But that's an action movie, and I would like, on one hand, to do action movies where I just, can swing my sword also and show my skills.
Right.
And on the other hand, I would love to do more really acting roles. So which is really where I just play completely characters, that are really really kind of far away from my maybe what do you call it, like the normal, which is kind of me. But in the end, if you act, there's always of course something of yourself in there.
Right.
But I like also now, like, yeah, like more the fragile roles where I can get sort of in tune with more the emotional side of things. So I want to explore the whole spectrum. That is something that would be cool.
Cool. So let me ask you this: if you could give somebody advice, a young person advice, what advice would you give them?
Well, I would say try to find calm first, like and try to get rid of your phone once in a while and social media, and start listening really to your gut feeling, like what is your gut feeling telling you when you go in a certain direction. So you go left, what is your gut feeling telling you? Is left okay? If it doesn't feel okay, then don't go left, and if it feels okay to go to the right, you go to the right. And for especially young people, yeah, that is way more important to listen to than listening to your parents. No offense, but your parents think they know what is best for you, but the one that knows what is best for you is you,
Right.
and nobody else. So that is something. And if you set your mind onto something,
Right.
uh, don't let people kill your dreams because they killed their own, you know. So
Right.
stick to them, because there are people actually living out their dreams, and it's not because they were lucky. It's
Right.
because they were stubborn as fuck. Just basically, yeah.
Right.
So my
Right.
language, but yeah, but that is it. You have to be stubborn, and in a sense, almost, you know, stupid in a positive way. You know,
Right.
just stubborn. That is basically, you know. So you can be smart, but you can be, you know, saying, okay, I'm gonna knock my head 20 times on that same stone. Sounds stupid, but sooner or later that stone will break. So if that is the game, then hit your head a couple of times on that stone.
Right.
But also have the wisdom, then, of course, if that stone really is not going and not budging,
Right.
that it is not meant for you, and then you have to follow another path. But always do something that creates happiness inside of you, because life is precious. So if you're gonna spend it on stuff you don't like,
Right.
that is a waste. That is a total waste. So do stuff that you enjoy, and you will never feel that you are at work.
Right. And and the way I look at it is that's pretty much your purpose. You find what you're good at, what you're passionate at, and to me that's kind of your purpose in life. Whatever vehicle you use, if you use music or art or martial arts or acting, whatever vehicle you use, you fulfill your purpose in life doing that thing.
Yeah, well, you are like a medieval knight, just like a samurai, you know.
Right.
We're servants. So in the end, yeah, we all go through these kind of life processes
Right.
where when you're younger, you take a lot, you know, and then when you grow older and wiser, you want to give more sort of than you take. So when you're younger, you often take more than you give, and then yeah, and I think in the end you need to serve
Right.
a higher purpose. Otherwise, yeah, what is it, you know, what you do? You're just dwelling, you know, like you know, what is this thing called on the end of a fishing rod? You know, you just, you know, floating in the sea, but you have no purpose, you know. So you need a higher goal, and you need to be somehow uh, a servant to something,
Right.
you know, submissive to something, you know. So, and that will also keep you humble.
Right.
So I think that is also important.
Cool. So, what are some of the current projects that you're working on?
Well, the stuff that I'm now working on very, very hard is in fact not Hollywood related in a sense, or sword fight. Well, you know, I'm working on an RPG. So on a tabletop game, and one of the reasons why I'm working on that is because I want to get young kids more into acting and sort of, you know, role playing.
Right.
And I also wanted to design a system which is not there. And they're like, you know, you got Dungeons and Dragons and all these famous brands, you know, like we talked about earlier.
Right.
And you know, with a specific, and you got Pathfinder now, and all these, they all have a specific mechanics. And yeah, basically what it comes down to: a 300-page rule book, 300-page player's handbook, a 300-page dungeon master guide, and a lot of people, you know, they would like to role play with their friends because it's more interesting than playing poker, you know, because you work all together and then you're in an adventure. And but it's a lot of pages, you know, and it's like a big threshold for people. And I wanted to create a system that's first of all simple,
Right.
but mainly realistic, because there's so many fantasy stuff is just, you know, it's just bullshit. And you can say, okay, but it's fantasy, man.
Right.
Yeah, but in fantasy land, you know, a wheel is still round, you know.
Right.
And so, you know, there's certain laws that also work, you know, like, and biomechanic stuff, sword fight wise,
Right.
strategy wise. So I thought, okay, it might be fun to actually develop an RPG that at this moment is called Real, and where young kids and also people that play RPGs get like a learning game where you actually learn how to survive. And if you can survive in the game,
Right.
you can actually survive in the real world because it all goes about mindset, and it's a completely out of the box way approach to doing an RPG. But it plays in the fantasy world. You can play a dwarf and elf and stuff like that. But it's designed by military guys,
Oh wow.
really tough like special ops guys, friends of mine. We work together as a team, and historical sword fighters. And there's not been an RPG out there ever that has been designed by professional fighters.
Right. That's really cool. So, yeah, Cuba's posted on that. I'd love to see it. Once it's fully developed.
Yeah, I don't know what other people are gonna think, but we think it's cool.
Right.
So maybe other people go like, "Oh man, that sucks ass." Yeah, I don't know. It could be, but it is. Yeah, I think it's at least unique.
Right.
And it's a very gritty game, so it's also difficult to stay alive. But it's cool, and it has a kind of a rich world also.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, that's what I'm working on now, and that takes shitloads of time. Basically, writing and game mechanics are a drag. Yeah. So yeah, that is what I'm working on now. And for the rest, I did a couple of auditions, so I'm waiting for that. But there's stuff that I can't mention, unfortunately. But some big shows, so I hope that something comes out of that. And in the meantime, I'm just doing a lot of sword fight workshops for company events and stuff like that. So and I'm just teaching, doing a lot of workshops and in my clubs. So that's what I'm doing now. So yeah, and let's see what the future brings again.
Cool. So if somebody wants to kind of follow you and learn, more about you and some of the things that you're working on, how would they be able to follow you? What kind of social medias are you on?
Well, I suck with social media. So if you want to support me, then yeah, great. So I got an Instagram page, and that is with 2 chickens and an egg following me because I don't do much with it. I'm trying to do that now. So it's Master Cardozo. That would be cool. And and I got a small YouTube channel, but I only use actually just to store my clips for myself. So and you can find that probably. Maybe you can put a link to it. So yeah, that's and of course I'm also on Facebook and stuff like that. I'm even on TikTok now. But yeah, I have to get more on. It takes a lot of time, that social media stuff.
Right.
So yeah.
Oh, we'll post what we can. We'll post it on your interview so people can kind of follow you and support you and some of the projects that you're working on. So.
All right. Well, that is always great. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, man, for being on the show today.
I really appreciate it. It's very, very cool. I think we could have talked for a way longer, especially about swords and armor and the stuff like that, and medieval martial arts in general. But I think we covered a lot of ground, so it was very cool. And I'm really appreciated that you asked me to be in the show. It's very cool.
Cool. Yeah, I like I said, I'm glad you came on, man, because like I said, that that time period, those are my favorite type of films, and to see somebody who's been in those films, and it shares that same passion too, from the medieval times, and it was cool to be able to talk to you about that.
Yeah, it is, and I think we have a passion for that kind of thing because, from the perspective of the observator, basically,
right,
it looks a very clear, distinct time where good versus evil, where things were simple, simple. You just put the pointy end in the other guy. It's simple, but so which is of course not really true because you had a lot of intrigue and backstabbing back then. But it is like it at least it seems to be clearer than it is at the moment in the world.
Exactly, that is a true statement.
So, brother, thanks a lot again, and you good luck with the show.
Well, I appreciate it.
We keep in touch.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys. Thank you guys for joining us today. Like I said, I want to thank Miso for being on. It was great to be able to talk to him and learn about his journey. So until the next episode, remember you are uniquely designed with the purpose, and always keep moving forward. Peace.